So today we're going to talk about the last team in the Eastern Conference to do a season preview, and that of course is the Philadelphia Union. Now, last season, the Philadelphia Union finished with a 14-12-8 record and finished with 54 points. They scored 48 goals last season while conceding 35 goals with a goal differential of plus 13, and they finished second in the Eastern Conference. Though last year it was definitely an so close year for the Union, and the regular season was kind of interesting too because they really hit rock bottom after they got eliminated by Club America in the CONCACAF Champions League, and it looked like this was going to be the latest victim of a MLS team going deep into CCL, and they basically paid the price by having to punt their season. But instead, they kind of did the opposite. They went on an incredible run in the second half of the season to get themselves into second in the Eastern Conference, and they came so close of potentially beating NYCFC and make it to MLS Cup for the first time in their franchise history. And there's no doubt that this year, that's what's in the minds of a lot of these Union players, and certainly for this team too, that they want to finish the job this season. Now, in the last 5 seasons, as I mentioned, they finished second in 2021, but in 2020, they made some history of finally securing their first silverware in their club history by winning the Supporter Shield. In 2019, they finished third place, while in 2018, they finished in sixth place, and then in 2017 was the last time this team did not make it to the playoffs and finish in eighth place. But that was back when the Union were kind of being a bit of a mediocre team. I mean, they kind of start their franchise as a bottom feeder, then kind of rise up a level to be a mediocre team. But no doubt these last couple of years has been a golden age for the Union, of them regularly being a contender for MLS Cup out of the Eastern Conference. Now, in terms of some of the signings that they've done during the winter transfer window and this offseason, not really a lot of signings. I mean, the biggest name coming out for the Union this offseason, or coming in and that they got this offseason, is Michael Arup from Bromby. They also got Julian Carranza from Inter Miami off of free agency, and also off of free agency they got Greg Regerson from Minnesota United. Now, in terms of players that they lost this offseason, they actually did lose a couple of very well-known name, and there's also a couple of well-known name that is now free agent for this team. The biggest names that they lost, well, arguably the biggest name, because they also lost a big name just this week. They lost Kasper Shabilko, who decided to go to the Chicago Fire. Then they also lost Jamir Montero, who he kind of been demanding a transfer to somewhere else, and he kind of finally got his wish this week by joining the San Jose Earthquakes, while the Union didn't really get a lot out of that. They also lost Alvis Pau, going back to FC Cincinnati. And then in terms of the players that they cut in the end of season roster that somehow are still free agent, Anthony Fontana, I'm surprised he hasn't been picked up by anybody off a free agent, though I have heard that there was a report that he was thinking about making a move to Europe, and that he actually might be going to a team in the second division of Italy. But I'm kind of surprised that the Union decided not to keep Fontana, because Fontana, I thought, was a guy that could be a good asset that they have in the future, and one of those youngsters that they can sell on for a big amount of fee. And I would also kind of go with Anthony Fontana as a comeback player here if he was still on this team, because last season, yeah, his development definitely took a little bit of a hit with him not getting a lot of minutes, either because of injury, or there seems to be better player ahead of him in the depth chart. But they also lost Matt Royale, who's a free agent. But the bigger name that I'm kind of surprised it's been not talked a lot about, and it should be given more appreciation, is Elzinho. He's no longer a Philadelphia Union player, and you know how that's got to be very sad, knowing the fact that we always talk about Elzinho being the cheat code for this Union team, of how he is, like, if you talk about who is the best super sub in MLS history, Elzinho is going to be right up there in terms of it. In fact, I would even argue saying he might be the best super sub that we have ever seen in the league, because you know that when he comes off the bench, he's going to do something magical, and that there's just time and time again he's able to do that, especially when he was at his peak of his power in the past couple of years. But this season he is turning 36, and it seems like his legs maybe finally have fall off, and that again, it seems like maybe he's also thinking about retirement. And if he is gonna announce retirement, there's no doubt that I would definitely maybe think about doing a video about Elzinho, because what he has done as a super sub in this league is something we have never seen before. And as I said, I think you could argue he is probably at the very least a top 5 super sub of all time in this league history. They also cut Arian Collins as a free agency, although Collins is another guy that is starting to kind of age a little bit, and being a journeyman like him, I think maybe this is kind of the time where either he's going to go to another team, or the fact that he's maybe decided to hang up his boots. And then of course the other player that they lost was Mateos Davil, who they of course got off of a loan deal last season, and they decided to not purchase him outright. Now, in terms of optimism for this Philadelphia Union team, I mean, there's definitely a lot of optimism in this Union faithful, knowing the fact that this is definitely an MLS Cup contender team, and maybe even a Supporters Shield contender too, because I look at this squad of how not only the fact that they have a lot of good veteran presence and a lot of good veteran player in their roster, but they also have some really highly rated youth player, whether they are coming out of the academy or guys that they of course sign in the off season. And speaking of those young player, they might have a chance to sell them off for a big amount of money. In fact, I think the Union, they are probably the team that has the most asset out of any team, that they can definitely make some big money when they sell them off to Europe. I mean, I won't be surprised in a year or two when they do sell some of their youngster off. They could be making like 20 or 30 or even $40 million out of that. And it just also proven why this Union team has been a team that, is a good example of sometimes you don't really need to spend money to get the biggest name to be successful in MLS. I mean, they're still keeping the dream alive of, you could develop your academy and bring in a lot of good academy product that is not only going to be proven to be a good MLS player, but can be proven to be a very, very good player over C2, or even crack into the U.S. men's national team. Like they really are giving FC Dallas a run for their money in terms of who exactly is the best academy, because I know FC Dallas does still have that argument, the fact that, well, most of the players from the U.S. men's national team came out of the Dallas academy, but I won't be surprised in a couple of years we're also going to be seeing a lot of players from the U.S. men's national team coming out of the Union Academy. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible what this academy has done. And what's even more surprising is that a couple of years ago that was not the case. But the reason why the academy has been so much better is because of the job that Ernest Tanner and also what Chris Albright, before he moved to FC Cincinnati, has done to the academy. Has really built to be one of the powerhouse academy and one of the best academy in the league in terms of providing good domestic talent. Now, in terms of concern for this team, and usually I actually put 3 concerns for a team, but for the Union, I can only come up with 2. And both of these are kind of nitpicky too, because there really isn't a lot of concern with this team. I mean, the only concern I think has to be the attack, and whether or not if it has enough going forward, because that was one of the big issues that they had in the postseason, with them surprisingly only scoring 3 goals during the entire postseason, but also losing a vital piece in Jamero Montero. I mean, I know I said before that they do have some good depth in Daniel Gastak and even Paxton Aronson play in that spot, but losing Jamero Montero, a guy that is one of the best deep line playmaker in this league, that's gonna hurt. And especially the amount that they got back from him, I've said it before, I feel like this is one of the biggest steal we've seen this off season, of how the Quakes are only able to pay $450,000 for a guy that is considered one of the best playmaker in this league, and probably the most underrated playmaker in this league. And then of course the other concern is, can Michael Aru be an upgrade to Shibilko, who departed to the Chicago Fire? So I've said before that Uru is a guy that I think he is going to do well in MLS and can be a 10-plus goal scorer. And even though I kind of said that, we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case. Because there's one thing that I've heard a lot of excitement, that this is going to be an upgrade for Shibilko. But until he actually started to put the numbers and actually back up all the talks of him being an upgrade to Shibilko, I think you might still have to take a grain of salt the fact that we'll see whether or not if he can do well. I mean, I know last season he done well in the Danish league, but can he, of course, repeat that. Now he's coming into a brand new league. Now, in terms of MVP for this Philadelphia Union team, I mean, there is actually a lot to choose from. I could have easily chose some of their youngster as well their MVP because they're that stacked in terms of their roster. But I'm gonna go with Andre Blake, and I think this is the only time I decided to go with a goalkeeper as an MVP, and it's understand why Andre Blake is the MVP of this team. I mean, he is a guy that has repeatedly bailed out this Union team, even at times when they were not looking very good on the defensive front. And I would even say that he is the best goalkeeper in MLS. I mean, well, between him and Matt Turner, well, actually, with now Matt Turner departing to Arsenal, he's gonna be the guy that I think is the guy to beat in terms of winning goalkeeper of the year, because I think Blake, it is incredible of what he has done with this Union team, and just time and time again being a consistent goalkeeper. I mean, there's one thing to see a goalkeeper that had a good season, but to do it for so long, and it just doesn't seem like every year when I see Andre Blake play, there's not one year I've said that he had a down year. That is how good of a goalkeeper he is, and that is why I think in a couple of years when he eventually hang up his boots, he's definitely going to be considered one of the best goalkeeper, and probably right up there in terms of the likes of Nick Remonto, in terms of the best goalkeeper we have ever seen in this league history. Now, comeback player for this Philadelphia Union team, I mean, again, there really isn't a lot of choice in terms of that, because none of the Union players from last season did not perform well. I mean, I would maybe go nitpick and say, I would say Shabilko might need a comeback year, but last season his number proved that he actually didn't have a bad season, and probably had a really decent season as a number 9. So for me, I want to say non-associates again, but I'm going to go a little bit nitpicky here and say that I'm going to go with Julian Carranza as the comeback player. And Carranza, we know that during his time with Inter Miami, it was not a great time for him. I mean, he barely got any minutes with the team. And it's also kind of interesting the fact that, now he's going to be joining a much better team, though I'm not quite sure will he get more minutes now that he's joining a much better team, and he's still going to be buried deep in the depth chart. But something tells me maybe Jim Curtin believed in Carranza, and that he can be a good piece coming off the bench. And I've said before, I think Carranza definitely has that potential to be a good player. But it's just unfortunate the fact that when he was with Inter Miami and of how chaotic that team has been during his time there, I feel like now that he is joining a team that has better coaching and is in a more stable kind of condition, I think Carranza is going to live up to his potential to be a good player. Though he's going to have to prove it, because he is in a spot where there's a lot of good attacking talent there, and he's going to have to work his way up the depth chart if he is going to consider to be a player that finally live up to his potential when he came into this league. Now, finally, for the expectation for this Union team, I mean, it's obvious. It's kind of an MLS Cup or bust kind of season, especially what happened last year, where they just came so close of making MLS Cup for the first time in their franchise history. But the other thing that is an expectation for this team is the fact that they're going to eventually sell one of their youngster for a big amount of money. And one guy that I know for sure that is probably the closest in terms of the next Union player to make his jump to Europe. Well, though, he's not really kind of a player that is making his jump to Europe, because technically he started his career in Europe before he came to MLS, and he's kind of one of those rare European youngster that decided to come to MLS before going back to there. And that player is Kai Wagner. I mean, there's been talks of Kai Wagner potentially sold to another club, and I really think, I'm not sure, maybe in the summer transfer window might be the time for him to move on, but there's no doubt that he's the closest in terms of out of all those youngsters that is making a big money move off to Europe. And it's going to be tough for the Union to eventually have to move on with him, because he's considered one of the best fullback in the league. But when that call has come, and when they have the right amount, I won't be surprised the Union is going to accept that offer and finally sell off Kai Wagner, probably even close to being an 8-digit kind of amount. I mean, I know fullbacks are usually not sold off for a lot of money. But recently we've seen some position where, you know, we always thought that attacking position is where the highest amount goes, and it makes sense because a lot of teams tends to pay more for attacking talent compared to a position in the back line or even in the fullback position. But recently we have definitely seen some position where we didn't expect there was a big money move that's come out of it, and it turns out that was not the case. I mean, a good example of it is when they sell, didn't they sell Mark McKenzie for a huge amount of money, and that he of course is a center back, and center backs are usually not a position that that you would think that there's a big money move out of that, and I think they got like something about $5 or $6 million off of it. So, and I feel like it's gonna be higher once Kai Wagner does move on from this team. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and if you're a Union fan, what's your optimism, your concern, and most importantly, your expectation for this upcoming season. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.